Every legislative session is pivotal, but this year's 60-day session feels even more monumental. There is new leadership in the governor's office. The Democratic Party has control of not only the governorship, but also bolstered its command of both the House and Senate. And there's roughly a $1.2 billion budget surplus to dole out. Will that leave any oxygen in the room for lawmakers to deal with environmental issues this year? Correspondent Laura Paskus went searching for answers. In this month's Our Land segment, she sits down with two key lawmakers to find out.
Senator Peter Wirth, Representative Gail Armstrong, thank you for being here today. So with the 2019 legislative session about to kick off later this month, we're going to be seeing some bills on the environment this year, right?
No question. It's lots of things in the pipeline, and with the extraordinary kind of energy revolution happening in our state in so many different fronts, and obviously the need to address lots of oversight and regulatory issues, there's going to be lots of changes and a new governor leading the way.
And so what are some of the top issues on the environment that you see we'll be talking about in the legislature this year?
Well, a couple things. One for sure is energy and renewable portfolio standard, something that Governor Lujan Grisham ran on. I think she's thinking 50% by 2030, and then potentially up to 80% at a certain date. And so how that works and what it looks like will be in the mix. On the waterfront, big need to have policy direction. Obviously, Texas versus New Mexico, the lawsuit that has us in the United States Supreme Court, is a very scary thing that everyone out there should know about. Lots of risk to our state, but I think it's time to be proactive when it comes to planning, to find out exactly what's out there in terms of the water resources we have, and then plan for the future. That's something the Interstate Stream Commission is tasked with doing. I'm going to again be carrying a bill this session to restructure the Interstate Stream Commission, to broaden the makeup of the board, and to try and have the legislature be involved in appointments. One thing we've seen over the years is water policy changing with the new administration that comes in, and that's not a good place. It should not be going back and forth. It should be something that's steady and focused and doesn't depend on the political position of the current governor. So we'll be working on that for sure.
Representative Armstrong, are there a few bills that you have your eye on for this session related to the environment?
Well, there's a couple. There's several issues that are coming forth, exactly like Senator Wirth said, with the whole renewable energy movement in New Mexico that I'm excited about. Also a little apprehensive. There's a happy medium that we can meet where everyone can hopefully get on board, and we can, with oil and gas and renewables, we can find that happy medium.
So when it comes to renewable energy, what are some of your concerns, or what's the balance that you're looking for?
The balance for me is, I live in rural New Mexico. The wind turbines that come through there are going to, the whole line will be on ranchers' private land. A lot of it, some of it will be on state and federal land. But, the ranchers live in the middle of nowhere for a reason. And when they are approached to get the turbines, some are happy and some give some pushback. So there's a happy medium that we need to meet there, and I'm encouraged to be part of trying to make that happen in a reasonable way.
Okay, so oil and gas is a huge part of our economy, but it also comes with problems. A few years ago, there was a push in the legislature for the state to be able to levy fines against companies and hold companies accountable. Are we going to see anything like that in the session this year? Are there any oil and gas related bills specifically? Do you want to start?
Sure, I'm happy to, and that's I think the penalty structure has been in place since the 30s. I carried that bill in the Governor Richardson administration, and I think I managed to get one vote in the Senate Conservation Committee at that 2009 or 10 when we did that. This past session, or 2017, Senator Martinez brought the bill back. It did pass through the Senate Conservation Committee and move forward. again, it's an example of an issue that I think we need to have oil and gas at the table. And we need to really sit down and figure out a reasonable fee and penalty structure, because it just doesn't make sense to have penalties from 1935. That's crazy. And I think the new administration is going to sit down with oil and gas at the table and look at a wide range of regulatory oversight, common sense, reasonable oversight. Methane's a huge issue. Oil and gas was at the table in Colorado when that was figured out. Also in Wyoming, they're at the table trying to work that issue out. And so I just think that as we move forward with an amazing resource, what's happening in southeast New Mexico is just extraordinary with the new technology, hydraulic fracturing. But when we use this technology, we have to be aware of the environmental impact. And so I think when it comes to the flaring, to water that's used in the oil and gas, those are areas where you do need to have oversight and regulation. And to some extent, this has happened so fast in that area that the regulation didn't catch up. You also, I think, had a philosophical difference in terms of the role of regulation. So again, I think you will see changes on that front. And again, I'm hoping, as Representative Armstrong said, that this is a collaborative discussion, because we do have so many energy resources with oil and gas, the wind resource in New Mexico. There's one company, Pattern Energy, that's putting in a 3,000 megawatt wind plant. To give a sense for folks, that's more electricity than PNM produces from all sources. So it just shows the magnitude of what's going on. And of course, solar is another place where you're going to see solar tax credit. And again, I think a real push by this administration and the industry, because the price of renewables has come down so much that also has just changed the whole discussion.
Right. So you represent a rural community by and large, and for the past decade or more, that community has faced a really interesting water challenge that maybe sort of the city dwellers don't always pay attention to. Can you talk a little bit about San Augustine Plains and what was happening there and what's happening now and why water is so important to rural communities?
Sure. What's happened for the last 10 years, there's a large private ranch that was purchased, and they wanted to drill 53 wells, 2,500 feet deep, and pipe the water from there on the St. Augustine Plains to whoever would buy it. The end user is the reason that it keeps getting denied, because they have no end user. It's going actually February 13th at 11:30 in Reserve, New Mexico, in the courthouse. Judge Reynolds will hear the appeal. It was denied. It's been denied several times. Went to appeal. Judge Reynolds will hear this appeal this time. It's been a real issue because it is private, water rights. They own the water rights. But at the same time, we feel in our community, and my constituents feel, that it would decimate our community. Even if we're not utilizing that water right now, we live in the desert. And the aquifer there's no telling, there's no real data on if it's a closed aquifer. There's different information. So we're hoping that the judge denies that again.
Right. Can you talk a little bit about the need for information and sort of what we know, what we don't know, what we'd like to know about our water?
Sure, I would love to. So I work a lot with Stacy Timmons from New Mexico Tech, who actually on our ranch that is in the St. Augustine Plains or borders it, they measure wells out there, and they've gone down. The footage of water has gone down in that area. They measure it all the time. So what I would like to see is data-driven information on by a nonpartisan entity, where it doesn't change with the governor, exactly like Senator Worth said. Every governor change, the state engineer changes, the focus changes, and it's like starting all over again. And it's very unfortunate that happens. There's some true problems with the water in New Mexico, and I would love to see data-driven information.
Right. And I think both of you have spoken with me over the years about a need for reform at the Office of the State Engineer and the Interstate Stream Commission. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
So that's going to be one of the big appointments we're waiting for from Governor Martinez, the state engineer appointment. But again, these are the individuals that set the water policy, and we made the decision at the legislature in the early 2000s to add water planning and looking into the future in water to the Interstate Stream Commission mandate. And over the last number of years, we just haven't had the resources really to give them the money they need to do that the right way. And the right way is having communities involved in each of the different districts, and you build this from the community up. Because if you don't have that buy-in, you're just never going to get change in the water arena. And I can't stress that enough. Just over the years, as I've chaired the Water Committee and the Conservation Committee, change is a really hard thing for everyone to get their hands around. And when you allow individuals to sit around a table and figure out the solution themselves, rather than have us come and dictate from the top down, that's when we move forward. So again, I think it's a super interesting area because it's not a Republican or a Democrat, rural or urban. I supported Representative Armstrong's effort on Augustine Plains, and there are members of my caucus in the Senate and the Democratic side that don't support that. And there's Republicans on the other side that don't either. And so this is a discussion really about our future, and it's only when we're able to work together and set aside those differences. I'm from Santa Fe, it's not a rural district, but I get completely how scary it is to think that we're going to pump groundwater and use that for recurring growth in some other location. That causes me lots of heartburn.
Right.
Also, water transfers. Of course, the Gila is another big water issue that's out there that we spent a lot of time on. So this is a scarce resource. It's critical to our future, and it's going to be incumbent upon all of us in the legislature to really work with the new leaders as they come in and be proactive moving forward.
So would it be safe to say that water will be a priority issue this session?
It's certainly a priority issue for me, and we can't let it kind of disappear. You sometimes, in the two administrations that I've served in, each year during the terms, there's been a year of water, and then all of a sudden it seems to disappear. And when it doesn't rain and the drought is extreme, everyone's focused, and then it starts raining, and all of a sudden the pressure's off. We cannot stop looking and thinking about water.
Right.
Again, the lawsuit in the United States Supreme Court has real risks and impacts both to water and to monetary potential consequences. And so it's got to be part of the discussion. And I'm really excited to have a new administration that I think is going to be far more proactive in working with the legislature, and together we've got to keep this front and center.
Right. How do we make that happen? How do residents and citizens, how do we make sure that water is a top priority?
Well, I think hold your legislators accountable. Make sure that they're doing something to help with the water situation in New Mexico. Part of the other thing is the use it or lose it aspect of the whole water issue. So people are using water not because they need it, just because they don't want to lose their water rights. Right. So it's an issue, and I think constituents need to be involved, or the communities need to be involved. And I think running out of water in the Rio Grande for a lot of my farmers down in Socorro, San Antonio, Limitar area, that was an issue. So I think the Middle Rio Grande Conservancy, everyone's front and center right now. The Interstate Stream Commission, several people, and we also need to utilize federal money match when we can get it.
Right. So whether in the media or in arguments, sometimes the environment always seems to be this partisan issue, but it's really not. Like, everybody wants clean water, accessible water, and I really appreciate the two of you coming here today. Can you talk a little bit about how we work together on these issues instead of fighting one another?
Well, the main thing that I think Senator Wirth and myself are willing to do is reach across the aisle to say, let's sit down, exactly what he said. Let's get oil and gas at the table. Let's get everyone that needs to be at the table, and listen respectfully, and you can disagree respectfully. But I think that's the only way that we're going to get anything done, is with water or anything else, is we've got to, and we need to be part of that team that reaches across.
Right. Senator Worth, do you want to add anything there?
Well, I'm just super excited about our new governor. We've met with her, the leadership, both Democrats, Republicans, House and Senate, and she has stressed exactly what Representative Armstrong is saying. She wants to hear from both sides. She wants to put people in the cabinet room, shut the doors, and figure it out. So that's just a different approach that we haven't had for a long time at the legislature. And I do think, certainly in the Senate, we've worked very well in a bipartisan fashion. It hasn't gotten super heated. And I know that Speaker Egoff is really emphasizing that in the House. And again, when you have members like Representative Armstrong, who understands that solutions in New Mexico aren't partisan solutions, especially in this arena, I think that you can get those kinds of results, and the buy-in that you have to have, again, I can't stress enough, it's not just us reaching agreement, there's got to be buy-in when we go back to our districts and explain what we're doing. So
Right.
It's an exciting time.
And that makes me think about transparency, and whether it's between the cabinet and the governor and the public and the press. You know, are we going to see more transparency in decision making, do you think?
Well, I think certainly Governor Lujan Grisham has run with that as a platform. I think as we've seen, that's often what's stated at the outset. I certainly believe in having the process be open. I will tell everyone out there watching and that the New Mexico legislative process is one of the most open in the country. I tell all my constituents, you can walk right onto the Senate floor before we gavel in and come see me and tell me what you're thinking. I assure them that all the lobbyists are there, and I'd much rather have my constituents and citizens across the state coming and taking advantage of that opportunity. So, you know, everyone needs to participate. We're trying to continue to make the legislative process more transparent and open with the webcasting and the archiving. It's changed dramatically in the 15 years I've been there. Mm-hmm. And so it's something I'm certainly committed to because, again, people need to understand it, get their hands around it, be part of it. And so transparency is a big piece of that.
Right. Representative Armstrong, any final thoughts?
Just, you know, we all have open door policies, so please come and see us and give us your thoughts, email us, call us, come to the session and sit down and listen to what's going on and how it all really works. It's a great process and procedure, and honored to look forward to the session, and honored to be here, and honored to represent rural New Mexico. And thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you both so much for being here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.